Guide me among those whom thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what thou hast judged. Surely thou judgest, and none can judge against thee, and he whom thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art thou, O Lord, and exalted be thee above what they set up besides thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is thy servant and apostle. Amen.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Peace be unto you. Welcome, welcome. I see y'all in the chat already. Some of y'all are shy. That's okay. You don't have to be in the chat if you don't want to. Okay. I have literally been preparing spiritually all week, but especially the last 2 days for this. And I pray that Allah answers my prayer and that we can unlock and unloosen some chains that are up inside of us. It's time for us to be free. Okay. I'm going to do this with slides today. We're going to have fun. Feel free to be in the chat. Talk to me, ask any questions. We're going to start off with an introduction. Okay. And then after the introduction, we're going to do a meditation and prayer. And then we're going to take an assessment. Okay, but we'll take it together. The assessment is just designed to get us thinking. And then we're going to do a prayer and an exercise to help remove some of this poverty consciousness from our spirit. And I'll tell you a little bit about that when it's time. I'm going to come back to the slides, though, after I finish my intro, okay? Because I really want you to feel the words of this intro, okay? Because you were born a God. But from the moment you opened your eyes, a system went to work to make sure you never remember that they never remember that. See, they no longer have to put you in chains because they made you forget who you are. The control they use isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the rules you never questioned, the beliefs you absorbed without asking, the dreams they told you to chase, all of it designed to shrink you into something small, something manageable, something compliant. But deep down inside, you've always known that you were more than what they told you you were. And tonight, we're going to remind you of who you are. See, money is spiritual. And you're going to see tonight why it, in fact, is spiritual and why the science of money has been kept from us and why Satan is so deceptive when it comes to money. See, he starts on us when we're little. The God within you and I is real, and it's time to wake it up. Some of us who are blessed to join the Nation of Islam, where we learned that we were given the sun, moon, and stars, and that Allah measured the universe and gave us the survey. But somehow we recited, we changed our names, we changed our diet, but we didn't apply that wisdom to money. We stuck to that old programming about money. Money don't grow on trees, they told us. They ask us for money, but they hate people with money. Make that make sense. But since you are a God, you must remember that you can control money. It's an element of that universe Allah surveyed and gave you. But you didn't just forget who you are. You were taught to forget. We all were taught to forget. Every system we've ever trusted, from school to our job, to the government, to the media, to our religion, it's never neutral. It was designed with one purpose: to keep your divine nature buried under layers of obedience, fear, and distraction. And somewhere along the way, we were taught to do for self, especially if we've heard the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but we confuse our old spook God with the true and living God. This webinar is not to bash anyone, not your parents, not your teachers, not your religion, and not you. It is simply to remind you who you are. And it may be uncomfortable for some people. Some people don't like this. We're going to do 4 weeks. Next week, we're going to talk about credit. The week after that, we're going to talk about financial literacy. Then we're going to come back to some of these mental strategies, because see, most of our problems is mentally and spiritually. From the moment you and I could speak, we were given scripts about who we are, what's real, what's allowed, what's impossible. We were handed stories about the world that made you and I small before we even had a chance to question them. And it worked. Not because we were weak, but because you and I were open, curious, absorbing everything. And they knew it from your earliest days in the classroom. The programming began. They called it education, but it was an indoctrination masked behind grades and gold stars. You were taught to sit still, Raise your hand. Keep your desk clean. Check all the boxes. Ask permission to express your own needs. In fact about it, as long as you got the good grades, nobody really cared much else about you. Interesting. They train your body before they even touched your mind. And once your nervous system was trained into submission, they filled your head with history, rewritten by conquerors, with science that denied the unseen, with literature. The glorified compliance and ridiculed rebellion. I should say they glorified compliance and ridiculed rebellion. Think back to what you were told. Follow the rules. Respect authority. Be realistic. Don't question. Don't dream too big. And in fact about it, if you caught yourself doing that, you looked at the accolades that people like some of us got because we checked all the boxes. We got all the good grades. It was all a setup. These weren't just harmless rules. They were the architecture of your cage. They were the architecture of your cage. Even your parents, our teachers, the people who loved us most, they couldn't stop it because they too were trapped inside the same system. They passed the programming down one generation after the next, not out of malice, but because it was all they knew. So we're not blaming nobody, and it's not their fault, and it's not yours either. But it is now our responsibility. Because the moment we see it, just me these few minutes here we've been talking, now you see it. You break the spell. You start to realize you've been acting out someone else's idea of life. You've been wearing clothes that never fit, chasing goals that were never yours, measuring your worth with rulers built by strangers. And all the while, a deeper part of you has been whispering, this ain't it. There's more, something else. That whisper is not a fantasy. That whisper is a memory. I'm going to say it again. That whisper is not a fantasy. That whisper is a memory. It's that ancient code that exists in your DNA, waiting to be reactivated. You see, Allah came to remind us who we are. But in many cases, we don't believe it. Because it's safer not to believe. See, when you're around so many other people who don't really believe who they are, it's easier to just be somebody else or be what they want you to be. It's safer to fit in. Not because you want to, but because something happened. Something happened to your mother. Something happened to your father. Something happened to your great-grandmother. Something happened to your great-great-grandfather. They were so afraid for you that they built behaviors and patterns into how they raised you because they wanted to keep you safe. They didn't want anything to happen to you. They didn't want you to be beat, whipped, or killed. They knew the system would not protect you. So they had to teach you how to behave, how to think, how to move so you could stay safe. And a lot of our psychology around money is built around safety. And most of us are stuck right there, even with supreme wisdom. Today, we want to let our ancestors know that Allah came to protect us, so we don't have to conduct ourselves in that cage that they built for us in order to keep us safe. But that idea of safety is also what's keeping you small and preventing you from accessing one of the greatest elements in this universe that you and I have been given. See, in Satan's world, you need money to move around. In Satan's world, money gives you options. We're going to talk about that. Now that you see it, and now that we're talking about it, your subconscious mind can work to help you dissolve the programming that has been passed down to you through generations, simply to keep you safe. Some of us are so scary that we couldn't make money if we tried, because we're scared. We want to be safe. And somehow you think being a good little boy and a good little girl means that you can't defy that coding. Well, today, our goal is to turn off that coding. Turn off that coding, all right? That has disconnected you and I from abundance and made our relationship with money so awkward, so volatile, so confusing that it literally runs from us. We're going to talk, pray, assess, and raise our awareness and disconnect ourselves from any coding that is blocking us from this tool that we can use to help liberate us. And that can give us more options. And what do I mean by options? You see, if you get sick, if you have some money, you don't have to rely on the treatment that is given to you from the insurance company. You got other options. You might want to go to Thailand to get some stem cells to avoid an amputation. I'm just using that as an example. If you have options, you're not forced to send your child to the school that Satan says you have to send them to. If you got money, you can decide what school is best based on your child's personality, based on how you want to bring them up. Money gives us options. If you have money, you can make a determination. I think I want some halal chicken. I want some organic vegetables. I don't have to save my $2 and go down to the corner fast food restaurant because all I got is $2. I can take $20 and spend it. If we have money, if we got a good relationship with money and somebody says to us, hey, you know what? We got a tragedy over here. There's bad water in this community. And instead of relying on the government, who we know ain't going to fix it, we need $50,000 to put a water filtration system in. If we got money, we got the option to be able to do that. Freedom ain't free. We don't worship money. We don't have to. It's not a God. So I want to make that clear, because some of us are so confused. Religion, the church, and even in some cases, the mosque has us confused about money. We don't know whether it's okay to make money, whether it's okay to have a business. Should we do for self? We talk about rich people like a dog, but then we trying to raise money. Which one is it? Folks is confused. Let's break those chains today. Let's break it today. All right. Okay. Thank you all in the chat for being in the chat. Let me get the slides up. Any questions or comments about that, let me know before we move on to our next thing here. I want to define money psychology. Okay. Money psychology explores the emotional and mental connections individuals have with money and how those connections influence their financial decisions. It examines how people value, spend, and save money, if they save, and how these behaviors impact their overall financial well-being. Understanding your money psychology can help individuals make more informed and rational financial choices. Generally, right now, this is where I want you to start typing in the chat some of the cliches that you learned about money growing up. There was one I said at the beginning: money don't grow on trees. My grandmother used to say, your money is your best friend in your pocket. You ain't got no friends if you ain't got no money. My father would say, don't be begging, it'll make folks hate you. What did you hear growing up? See, all of this is part of the making of your money psychology. Some of us grew up around pimps and hustlers. Some of us grew up around blue collar workers who work from can't see morning to can't see night, and we can't seem to break out of that. We can't even rest. We get our schedules and we pack our schedules from can't see morning to can't see night. We don't even give our nervous system a rest because we don't even realize that even when you rest, you can be receiving abundance. I heard somebody on the internet say, rest is a revenue generating activity. I said, oh, I love that. Huh? Your pocket is hot money that you can't wait to spend. Yeah, like that money is burning a hole in your pocket, right? I heard that one before too. So when you think about it, especially those of us that grew up in working class families, and we have businesses, but we run our business the same way that our job was ran. We're scared to take a break. Do you know that you got to be able to spiritually tune in so that you know when to draw back and when to go full steam ahead? Because when you keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing because you feel like, oh man, I don't know how I'm going to get this money. I don't know what I'm going to do. You keep grinding. What you're putting out there into the universe is the fact that you don't have it. What you're really saying is, I ain't got it. But you think, I gotta pack my schedule because this is the way I've been taught to do this when I was working at this company. So now all you do in your business is you just own a job. You're not accessing something bigger than yourself. Some of us are on fixed incomes and we can't seem to get off of that fixed mark because somebody told us that fixed income was a good, soft place to land, and that's where we got to stay. All right, let's go to our next slide here. All right, so I want to introduce to some and reintroduce to others money, good homes, friendships, in all walks of life. Some of you that are here have heard that before. Some of you have not. Let's talk about that. I pulled this excerpt from Muhammad Speaks newspaper, September 23rd, 1966, where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, money, good homes, and friendships in all walks of life is what God has promised us. The God who came in the person of Master Father Muhammad, to whom praises are due forever, the finder and redeemer of us who were lost from our people and country for the past 400 years. He now offers to us, he now offers to set us in heaven at once. The base of heaven is being free from want, free from our enemies, having a good home, a place of peace and rest, and having friendship. Without friendship in all walks of life, money and good homes count for nothing. The world has money and good homes, but does not have friendship in all walks of life. These are the things that God promised the lost and found members of the Black nation. There's a lot in that to unpack. A place of peace is something I want to zone in on right now for a minute. Because in our genetic coding, we do not connect work with peace. See, we can't remember past the kidnapping. Once we were kidnapped and brought over here, we're working from can't see morning to can't see night. There ain't really no peace. Excuse my slang or my bad English. Ain't no peace. So what do? We are building our businesses with no peace. We have no built-in relief for our central nervous system. We're just going, meeting. Sometimes Allah needs you to get out the way. Sometimes the blessing you're looking for is right there, but you're in the way. Why are you in your way? Why are you in the way? Because you're scared. You don't feel safe when you go lay down. You don't feel safe if you take the day off. You don't feel safe if you take a minute or an hour to go sit in the sun. Everything we're doing is oftentimes a offshoot of the epigenetics from slavery. We have a resume. We got a resume. We put our resume out there. Okay. Yeah, all money is not good money. That's another saying. Thank you, Tania Deshawn, for putting that in there. That can be unpacked. You're right. All money is not good money because we know that we're not going to sell our soul. We don't worship money. We are eradicating and uprooting some of this from our DNA. See, if you never know if 2 or 3 or 4 generations ago, one of your ancestors was whooped severely and lived on a plantation where they were damn near beat to death for not doing a job properly. Then what our mothers and grandmothers said was, I do not want that to happen to my baby. So I'm going to make sure my baby lives in this little proverbial cage so that the baby don't do too much. Because if the baby does too much, if the baby's not perfect, if the baby makes a mistake, if I don't dress the baby right, or the baby doesn't respond properly when spoken to, he or she might get beaten or slapped. And then we create an entire system around that. So now you got a whole family walking on this square, living in this cage, and then that gets passed down to the next generation. And they may not say it anymore. I don't want you to get beat or whipped by massa. But what they're saying in a subconscious way or in a silent way to you is, if you don't walk this straight and narrow, you're not going to be safe. And it's rewarded by behaviors. Now we're like little puppies. Up. If you pee off the paper, then you're going to get a spanking. But if you come over here and do it the right way, here's a treat. Here's a paycheck. Here's a promotion. Here's an extra job. Now, I'm not making mockery of that, but you got to understand what it is. You got to understand what it is. Why is it so hard to say, I want to do for self? Why did God himself have to say to us, you must get up and do something for yourself? Because it's something that has been taken away from us. Something that has been programmed up out of us. To the point where now every single thing we do is couched in this illusion of safety. Even down to our schedules, even down to how we do business, how we walk. It's all about, let me be safe. And I'm going to keep saying this, but what I want us saying right now to the ancestors and to the coding that's inside of us is that we thank them for every experience. But God came. We're safe. We now have been given a new way of living, a new way of being, a new way of thinking. Let me go to this next one. I'm getting ahead of myself. All right. So what we're going to do, I'm going to say this prayer. And you can see at the bottom here, next to the message to the black man, where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, we, the lost found, should repeat the above prayer 7 times a day, for it sums up our greatest hindrance to freedom and self-independence. That's from Message to the Black Man, page 152. I'm going to say the prayer, and what I want us to do is take about 60 seconds to meditate and let the words seep into our subconscious. You know, it just came to me almost like I want to say to y'all, like a Harriet Tubman, we's free. We just got to walk into it. And part of what's wrong with our money psychology and why we just can't seem to get it is because we're so disconnected from our creator that we no longer mimic the creation process when it comes to making money. We're not creative. But then some of us are creative, but we're scared to move. Let's say the prayer. Oh Allah, you can close your eyes. I'll say it for you. Close your eyes and breathe deeply, and I'll say it for you. And then we're going to take about 60 seconds and meditate. Oh Allah, I seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief. And I seek thy refuge from lack of strength and laziness. And I seek thy refuge from cowardice and niggardliness. And I seek thy refuge from being overpowered by debt and the oppression of men. O Allah, suffice thou me with that which is lawful, to keep me away from what is prohibited. And with thy grace, O Allah, make me free from want of what is besides thee. Give me 60 seconds and focus on those words and just listen to the rhythm of your breath. And during these 60 seconds, I want you to know, like you know, that you are God. No more doubt. No more playing it safe. No more playing it small. No more living a life of subtraction. No more of not loving and accepting ourselves. At this moment, right now, in the wake of that amazing prayer, we release all that epigenetic coding that has hindered us, that has us scared, that has us acting like modern day slaves, even though we claim we are not. Deep breath. We command from the universe that these codes, this programming be released from us now. We command the courage to move like gods. We command creativity. Why am I commanding? Because God is everywhere. Allah is already with us. He's already promised it to us. We just have to take it. We thank you, Allah. We thank you for this gathering today. We thank you for this money psychology study. We thank you for every little chain that you're breaking in our spirits right now. We thank you. We thank you for this gathering. We thank you for these downloads. One last breath, in through the nose, out through the mouth. You can open your eyes slowly. Now, what we are going to do next is we are going to go through a little assessment. Okay? This money psychology assessment that I designed is designed to help you to better understand your attitudes, your beliefs, and behaviors surrounding money. It can reveal how emotions, upbringing, and past experiences influence your financial decisions. Together, we will explore your spending habits, saving tendencies, any financial anxieties. My hope is that together we can unlock access to the abundance that is already yours. Y'all ready? If you're in the chat, I see some of y'all shy, some of y'all more active. If you're in the chat, give me a thumbs up. Let me know you're ready. If you're already starting to think of things, if your wheels are turning, if you're feeling like some of this is breaking loose from you, let me know in the chat before we move into this assessment. Sister Tania said, ready. Let's go. Who else is ready? Who else is starting to think? Who else is starting to feel their central nervous system begin to shift? Sister Victoria X said, ready. Nubia Latifa, thumbs up, said, ready. All right. Let's go into the assessment. Kashima Newman says, ready. All right. This first one is just going to shake loose some stuff from us regarding our spending habits. This is a no judgment zone. I just want y'all to know that. This is a no judgment zone. We all come up out of the same kidnapping trauma, and we're trying to get this trauma up off of us. We want to turn those codes off that have been programmed inside of us. We want to get rid of that today. We want to start new. We thank our ancestors. We thank them for every experience and everything that they have gone through. And we thank them for teaching us to stay safe. I keep getting ahead of myself. I want that prayer so bad. We're going to do that at the end. All right, here we go. Are you a compulsive spender? Does it help you to relieve stress? Right? Is spending a form of entertainment? Do you tend to splurge, or are you frugal? Are there emotional triggers like pain, anger, or even boredom that lead to impulsive spending? Are you a competitive spender? Or do you try to avoid spending altogether? You can answer rarely. I usually think about my purchases carefully. Occasionally, but I try to stick with a budget. Frequently, I often regret buying things I don't need. This is personal. This is you. I want you to think about this. Jot down what your emotional reactions are. Are you compulsive? Do you just go somewhere and go, oh, I like that. I think I want that. What's driving that compulsion? What triggered you? Does shopping or spending money help you to relieve stress? You get stressed out and say, oh, you know what? I think I'm going shopping. What triggers you? Okay. Is spending a form of entertainment? I know a lot of people like that. Do you tend to splurge? Or are you more frugal? Are there emotional triggers like pain, anger, or even boredom? Some of us are competitive spenders. We want to have the best shoes. We want to have the best car on the block. We want to have the best house in the family. And we can't make strategic financial decisions because we're too busy doing what? Keeping up with the Joneses. Some of us are just people who pole mouth. We think it's being frugal, but we just poverty conscious. We think, oh, I ain't got no money, but I'm hefty in the spirit. That's the way some of us think. I don't have no money, but I'm a good person. How are you labeling yourself? Are you labeling yourself as the person with no money, but you got a lot of spirit? Is that who you identify as? Well, unravel that. What happened to you that makes you call yourself by that name? Ask right now for Allah to help you let go of those things that are hindering you when it comes to your spending. Some of us are really detached from reality. When we say that Black people have $1 trillion worth of spending power, that means we had to have $1 trillion in order to spend it, right? So when I'm coaching a lot of y'all think Black people don't have no money. You think you can't get wealthy doing business with Black people. Some of y'all are pandering for white customers or customers from another culture that you don't have and you ain't gonna never get. Or that you've never had. Think about that. Some of us, as spiritual people, like to call ourselves poor righteous teachers. We just poor believers, poor. Guess what? It costs money to be a Muslim, to be conscious. It's not cheap. You got to wear, I got on a custom garment sitting over here on a webinar. It would have been cheaper for me to just go to Rainbow. I got some halal food over there and some organic vegetables that I'm going to eat after the webinar. It would have been cheaper for me to roll up at the dollar menu at the fast food store. Many of you have children in private schools, inexpensive after-school programs. Wouldn't it be cheaper to just send them to school down the street? So stop thinking that you're broke and you're poor. Get that out of your system. Let's go to the next one. That's enough on spending. All right, saving and investing. Where are you on saving and investing? Do you feel secure in saving and investing, or do you find it challenging? Are you open to taking financial risks? Are you a gambler? Or are you afraid to take risks? Do you believe that saving money will save your life? Or is money only worth something when it's being spent? Got 3 options here. I regularly save and feel good about securing my future. I save when I can, but it's not always a priority. Or I struggle to save and often feel like it's too hard to put money aside. Again, no judgment zone. This is your personal thing. The reason why I say no judgment zone, because some people get real judgy. You hear them on the internet say, yeah, I was around a bunch of rich white people and all they had on was Levi jeans. Well, I don't like Levi jeans. I like my custom garments, and that's what I'm getting ready to wear. So you're not getting ready to money shame me into walking around in Levi's if I don't like Levi's. I'm just saying. So the money shaming that we do in our community is part of what impacts a lot of our money psychology. We talk about people if they look too good or too designerish, but if they look bummy, we talk about them also. We go to church or the synagogue or the mosque or the temple, and we hear a lot of negative talk about money and a lot of negative talk about rich people or the rich man. It's in the Bible, in these different, we hear a lot of that negative talk, but then afterwards they pass the collection plate. Make it make sense. Which one is it? If we don't like business and we don't like making money, how are we going to do for self? Make it make sense. So you got to get clear on where you are. For me, the clarity is I don't worship money. I don't have to. I got a mighty God. Money is not my God. But I want to make sure, not even a but I want to make sure that my relationship with God is so good. Me and Allah are so jam tight that whatever I need, He brings it to me and allows me to have it. So if the gas prices go up to $10 a gallon, it's not for me to worry about how high the gas is. It's for me to worry about or to be concerned about my relationship with God so that He makes sure that I have access to what I need when I need it. See, sometimes we start making a problem a God. See, if I make how high the gas is a God, and I forget about the true and living God, then you damn right I'm going to struggle to put that $10 a gallon gas in the car, right? But if I'm making sure that I'm right with God, then I should be able to command from a universe that He gave me what I needed. So I'm always trying to figure out who do I need to be at this moment and how much more do I need to fine tune and tweak and improve my self-improvement and improve so that I'm more vibrationally aligned with what I showed up on the planet to do. All right, let's go to the next one. Y'all all right? Financial trauma. Some of y'all were at the financial trauma boot camp, but we're going to go over this again. Financial trauma can have a significant impact on your mental health, your well-being, and your overall life. Did you have something that happened in your life that caused you to be depressed about money? Have you had a sudden change in your financial status? Are you constantly worrying about money? Or do you feel relaxed when you think about your relationship with money? Do you have difficulty thinking clearly when it comes to money? Does money make you nervous, angry, or afraid? Have you had some major financial setbacks like bankruptcy, divorce, illness, loss of job, or something else that has changed the way you view money and how you make decisions? Did you have an illness that set you back? You got 3 options for an answer. Rarely. I feel confident in my financial security. Sometimes, but I manage my finances well. Or often, I feel anxious about my financial situation and whether I'll have enough. Again, no judgment zone. Do not think about how somebody else might answer this question. Do not think about how I might answer this question. The only reason I give you examples so that you can just see how I'm thinking and you can feel free to think the way you need to think in order to clear some of this up in your own psyche. But financial trauma is huge. Did you go through a divorce? Did you lose your job? When you were a child, was there something bad that happened? When you were a child, did you never have any money? I have a good friend, and he grew up in a very large family. And so I always would tease him when we would go to business dinners and how he would eat so fast. And he'll eat up everything. He can't stand for nobody to leave food on their plate. But that's because he grew up in a large family and he was the smaller of the children. And so he had to hurry up and eat before the big children came and took what little food there was. And so even literally in his posturing while he eats, do you have something like that affected you? And it doesn't always have to be a negative thing. I'll give you an example of my own personal life. I grew up, I was never made to do what I didn't want to do. If I could explain it, if I could defend it, I could do it. And so my mother felt like she grew up in such a strict and restrictive thing or environment. She wanted us to have more freedom. Now, she didn't let me talk on the phone to boys, and then she didn't let me go out to parties, and I couldn't spend the night over my friend's house. But outside of that, there was no forcing us to do certain things that didn't make sense to us. So what did that do to my psychology? What kind of person did I grow up to be? So I didn't have to grow up in these boundaries, with the exception of those things like no talking to boys, no spending the night over nobody's house, and no lying, things like that. But boundaries were not necessarily something that we were raised with. My mother was big on authenticity. You got a beat down if you was being fake or phony and you didn't keep it real. These are things that happen in our lives while we're growing up that impact us. I'll tell you something that happened with my grandmother that impacted my ability to be free to worship what at the time, what I call God, the way I wanted to. We grew up Catholic. And you go to first communion and you get your catechism, and we were going to first confession. And I used to sit, my grandmother used to read the hymnals every morning, and I would sit and read the hymnals with her every morning. Now, reading those hymnals is really like an indoctrination into the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Interesting, right? And so at a very early age, I fell in love with the Trinity. I learned and grew to understand it later as a Muslim, and grew deeper in love with the three of them once I was able to put a name and a face to what I learned about the Trinity when I was a child. Now, going to first confession, though, I remember walking into the den, and my grandmother was sitting in her chair. She had her favorite chair she'd always sit in. And I told her, I said, I'm worried about confession. I said, because I don't know what to say. And I told her that in the class, they said, like, if you cursed or you did something, if you stole something, and I didn't have anything like that, and I didn't know what to say. And my grandmother, who never spanked me, never hit me, never yelled at me, I like to say I was her favorite, she got mad at me. She said, don't you go in there and tell that man all your business. You don't worship no man. And I don't know if I was coming off like I was worshiping the priest, or I don't know what I was coming off as, but she went off on me. And she told me to get my, upstairs and go and confess to God. And when you get in front of that man, you can make up and say whatever you want to say. She said, he ain't going to do nothing but tell you to say a few Hail Marys. So I'm sure she had her reason for that, but that stuck with me. And I remember in college picking up a Quran. I remember going to meditate with the Buddhist. I remember reading the Bhagavad Gita, because what that did for me is it unlocked something. So I felt okay with being a seeker. So when I came in the mosque, they used to laugh at me because I used to meditate all the time. They would laugh like, that's the weird sister that be meditating. But I've always been a seeker of ways in which to get to know, to recognize, and to see God. And I found my foundational home in the Nation of Islam, but that which was a traumatic experience for me with my grandmother, who never fussed at me, when she went off on me and sent me up to my room, that was traumatic for me. So that trauma opened up something in me. So what experiences did you have, good or bad, that impacted how you see things now as an adult? I remember my grandmother saying to me, I said something, I called somebody a friend. And she said, you ain't got no friends except them dollars in your pocket. And I was like, whoa. And so I started to attach worthiness to money. Interesting, right? So that was something that, as I started to study emotional intelligence and money psychology, I had to unravel the marriage I had created mentally between worthiness and money, especially in this country, because if you ain't got no money, it's almost a criminal. So I learned through that study how to figure out how to be. So I'm asking myself, who do I need to be in order to have what it is that I want? Who do I need to be? Well, how do I figure that out? I had a client say to me, well, I never had it, so I don't know how to be. Okay, let's imagine. How are you going to feel? if you know you want to save $100 out of every paycheck, how are you going to feel when you've been doing that for 12 or 13 months? How are you going to feel when you have the money to write a check for your child's tuition a year in advance? How are you going to feel when you get the money to pay off the debt that you're strapped with? How are you going to feel? You see? And then once you decide how you're going to feel, you feel that way. And you keep calling up that feeling. And then that changes your vibration. Let me know in the chat if y'all getting this. If anybody's got any questions, feel free to say it. I know you all are thinking. Let's talk about financial desires. What do you hope that your new healthy mindset about money will do for you? What do you hope that your new healthy mindset about money will do for you? What are your long-term financial goals? Have you thought about a short-term financial plan? Do you feel motivated to achieve them, or do they seem too distant to prioritize? Have you abandoned your desires because your financial needs are so overwhelming? That's real, right? You got financial needs, but these bills are staring you in the face. So I deal with that fantasy stuff later. I got to work on this right here. That's a trap. Here's the options. I want to retire early, achieve financial independence, and build wealth. I want to maintain a stable life, pay off debt, and save for emergencies. I want to have clear financial goals right now, or I don't have clear financial goals right now, or they seem overwhelming. Let's talk about something. How do you correct money avoidance issues? Okay, let's deal with that. And before we deal with that, let me talk about this. This just came to me. This just came to me. Thank you, Alon. A lot of times, many of us are unable to plan. We're unable to plan our money. We're unable to plan financially. We're unable to think about our future because the trauma that we're experiencing right now has become our God. What do I mean by that? We now identify with that trauma. We identify with our challenges. We identify with what we don't have. We identify with what we got to get fixed in the house. We identify with the trauma that our children are going through. We identify with our marital problems. We identify with that we got more month and less check. We identify with that, and then that becomes who we are. And so we don't take time to even dream, to even imagine. When's the last time you took an hour out of your day to just look at the kind of house you want, look at the kind of car you want, write down what kind of vacation you want? I don't care how many bills you got. Give your mind a break. You're not a slave. You have the freedom to think beyond your circumstances. Let's talk about those money avoidant attitudes. A lot of us just don't like to think about money. We just go, I'm just not going to think about it. And usually when we conduct ourselves like that, it's because there's been some type of trauma that has happened in our lives associated with money, and we just rather not deal with it. It's like people who go through a bad divorce and they say, I'm done. If you find yourself When you're experiencing something and your brain is constantly going, never again, I'm done. It's because what happens to us when we have a situation that we don't like, we oftentimes create a rule. And then we start to live by those rules. Oh, I'm never talking to that person again, or I ain't never trusting them again, or that's why I don't go around them again. That's why I don't go to that store. There's always a rule that we create. This is a slave mentality. No, look now. If you go down the end of that driveway, master gonna slap you. So what's the rule? Don't walk to the end of the driveway. So we create these rules. This is something, if you catch yourself doing, you want to stop right there. When you start making a declaration, and when you know that declaration is about to become a rule, stop. Some of us just go, I'm just not going to talk about it. I'm just not going to think about it. If you have something like that, like money in your vibration that you are constantly avoiding, you want to dip your toe back in the water. Just dip your toe back in the water. Start small. I think you have to go general. Sometimes we're too specific. Sometimes when we're thinking about that specific thing, we have such a strong emotional reaction that we don't want to think about it again. So you just pull back. Right? You can think about things like, I was talking to somebody the other day and I said, you know what? You're going through a tough situation right now, but I knew I had to go general because the person was dealing with something very specific and very painful. What's a general statement? This is a general statement I use. At the end of the day, I know Allah has never forsaken me. He ain't never left me out there. See, because your heart knows that everything's going to be all right. It's the balance between your masculine and your feminine that causes you to be in avoidance or to have a strong emotional reaction. What do I mean by that? At the end of the day, your heart knows that you're going to be all right. You know it. Your heart is connected to God and you know, I'm going to be all right. But your masculine mind is saying you ain't got enough data to make that statement. Your masculine mind is saying, yeah, but what if you get evicted? What if they arrest you? What if you have an accident? What if you die? What if this happens? What if that happens? And so generally what happens is when the mind is going crazy with those monkey brains and being very masculine, the feminine has to come in and say the prayer. What I mean by that is your heart or your feminine is where you receive. Your masculine is where you create. So the masculine part of your mind is always trying to do this, do that, do this. Let me stay busy. Let me think about this. Let me worry about that. Sometimes we're too out of balance. So sometimes you got to take a break from the masculine side of your mind and go somewhere and just receive. Just sit quietly, just receive, laugh, have fun, receive. And so if you are avoiding something, it's probably because it's too much masculine thought around it. And so you have to go somewhere and just sit with it and just receive. And sometimes you're going to receive something that's uncomfortable, but you just let it flow. And most of the time it'll float right on past you just like that. But you got to receive. When you get out of balance, see, we live in a world that is very masculine driven, even for men. With nobody feels safe. When you don't feel safe, you are constantly trying to figure out how to make yourself feel safe, how to get safe. That's for men and women. That's why when a woman doesn't feel safe, she goes into her masculine. She goes into, let me work, let me create, let me protect myself, let me put some borders up around. I got to put a ring of fire around me. If a woman is in a relationship and a man starts to introduce things into the relationship that makes her feel unsafe, then she moves and pivots from the feminine and moves into her masculine, because now she has to go into survival mode in order to be okay. So if you're finding yourself in survival mode, if you're stressing out, if you're worrying, if you're just doing so much, can't see morning and can't see night, stop. Avoiding things that you know you need to deal with, sit with it. If you got an envelope that you know got some news in that you don't want to look at, maybe it's a bill, sit with it. Because at the end of the day, your heart knows what to do. I do a heart meditation that helps people with avoidance issues because it helps you to feel the beauty of your heart. I've done heart meditations where you put your hand on your heart, and I've just sat with my heart for hours and I just cried like a baby. Why did I cry so hard? Because I had been so far away from my heart, so far away from receiving, that it just felt so good and so beautiful. So for avoidance issues, start with sitting with it. Pull back, go general. I even say a prayer. I say, Allah, send me the data that I need so that my mind catches up with my heart. Or I'll say, Allah, send me a demonstration that you're going to help me take care of this. Allah, what should I be pulling from the universe to answer this problem? What should I be commanding from what you've given me to handle this? I'll even say, Allah, I've been avoiding this, and I know I need to face it. Give me the data I need to give me the courage to face it. Just a few techniques, okay? This is thinking like a God. So you're pulling from the universe to give you what you need. Not waiting on a spook God. Okay, here's the next one. Culture and family influences. How did your upbringing, family experiences, and environment shape your relationship with money? We've been talking about that pretty much throughout the entire webinar. Were your parents big spenders, or did they struggle to make ends meet? Was money discussed in your home, or was it a taboo subject? Were there prominent cliches that influenced you, like money don't grow on trees? We talked about that earlier. Or save your money, it will save your life. Or how are you going to do that if you don't got a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of? I know y'all know that one. Were your parents great money managers who taught you everything you need to know about money? Here's a few options. They were good with money, and I learned financial responsibilities. Or they managed okay, but money wasn't really talked about much. Or money was a source of tension or uncertainty in our family. I want you all gathering your questions as well, okay? Because we're going to come to a point towards the end where I want to answer your questions, okay? Cultural upbringing, I think we've spent a lot on that. Let's go to self-worth and money. This is the next slide. Look at that visual. I talked a little bit about this, but I'm going to say this again. One day I was telling my grandmother that I wanted to go roller skating with my friends. And she responded, "You ain't got no friends. Your friends are them dollars in your pocket." This started me down the road of equating my self-worth with my net worth. Do you associate your self-worth with your financial success? Let's explore ways in which we can unravel this antiquated mindset. This can affect how you manage money and how you view your financial progress. This is why this is important. Because if you are in business, there are what they call the vicissitudes of business. You're tied to an economy or a market that goes up and down. And so when I went into business, I went into consulting and a business developer. There were times where we got a lot of projects and the projects paid very well. Generally for consultants, we tend to do well under Republican presidents. So that's when the dollars would be popping. Or there would be times when a lot of the projects were dealing with nonprofits and the money wasn't what it was like it was in the for-profit sector. And so when those ebbs and flows come, I can't be judging myself. I can't be looking at myself based on how the market is going up and down. I can't attach my self-worth to my financial worth. So I had to work through that. And I didn't discover it until I started doing for self. See, when I was working a job, it was just the salary. And then at the end of the year, they give you a raise or whatever. So you don't see it. But then when you go into business, you got to know how to ride the market. No matter what industry you're in, you're going to have seasons. You're going to have ebbs and flows in your business. You're going to have products and services that do well at some times of the year or with certain customers, and then others that don't. And so you can't be on an emotional roller coaster ride based on these products. Some people think, I heard somebody say the other day, when I want to go into healthcare because in healthcare, things don't change. It's just always the same. And I said, up. That is not true. That is absolutely not true. Unfortunately, there is a market and there are companies that dictate how the healthcare industry flows. For real. If you're in the healthcare industry, there's a point where orthopedics was doing well. Everybody was opening up these outpatient orthopedic surgeries, and they were doing, surgeries, spinal surgery, and chiropractors were coming in, and all this stuff was big. It was all about the back. That's just because some healthcare company had probably come out with a device and they put all the attention on that. And then all of a sudden, everybody started zooming in on that. And then Medicare said, we ain't paying out. We're going to reduce the reimbursements. And then everybody shifted. And then there was a time where folks was really into pain management. They was going to these doctors and getting ketamine injections and all this pain management. Then all of a sudden they said, oh, no. Too many narcotics, too many people addicted. So the reimbursements went down. Then you start seeing everybody on dialysis. You go up in the dialysis space and it ain't nothing but black men up in there on dialysis. And then they start playing with those reimbursements a little bit. They had a period in, I think it was in DC, where you could only get dialysis at the hospital. It's because they was just trying to drive the dialysis centers out of business. So all of this stuff, these ebbs and flows happen in every industry, every single industry. It goes in waves. Everybody has a certain disease. Everybody takes a certain medicine. It's all economics driven. And so you cannot be attaching your self-worth to what these satanic people, these predators are doing with the markets. I had to learn that because otherwise I'd have ended up curled up in the bed every time the market went up and down and up and down. Right? All right. Any questions? Any questions before I move on? You can put them in there. A lot of what we're talking about today is based on this circle of emotional intelligence. I became a certified emotional intelligence coach and trainer after Study Guide 18 came out, Rising Above Emotions into the Thinking of God. And I said, I want to learn more about emotions. And here's another tip for you that's going to help you with your money psychology. I had something about myself that I hated. Something about myself that I hated ever since I was a little girl. I hated it. I hated the fact that I was so sensitive. I hated the fact that I could feel things. I hated the fact that I could see things. And so I would have an emotional reaction, not only to what I thought and saw. Even for me, I would get commands or downloads. I would call them downloads or commands from universe or communications from God that would tell me what to say about what I saw and felt. And I hated it. And when I started to study emotional intelligence, I said, oh, wait a minute. I can convert this thing that I hate and look at it as a gift. And one day I said, it's a reason I can sit across the table and think of ideas that a lot of people can't think of. It's a reason I can build a business quicker than the average person. It's a skill set that I got. It's a reason why I can crisis manage and I can be that modern day Olivia Pope and solve a problem. It's because I'm feeling and thinking oftentimes on a very microscopic or metaphysical level. And so when I started to lean on that, and I started to realize, ooh, I can use this. This can make me money. I can gain an advantage from this. Let me stop fighting what is divine about me, which is what most of us are doing, which is why we're pushing money away, because we're fighting what is divine about us. We're fighting our divinity. Why do we fight our divinity? Because somebody hurt our feelings, because we don't like what somebody said about us. Somebody make us feel a certain way, and then we go, oh, you know what? I'm not going back to church. I'm not going to do that. We have to make sure that we stop fighting. Stop fighting the very thing that Allah gave you. That is the mechanism for how He comes through you. That's somebody's word right there. Now, emotional intelligence is all about motivation, social skills, empathy, self-awareness, and self-regulation. A lot of people get confused about emotional intelligence. They think it just means that they don't have emotions. Let me sum this up in a few sentences. Your emotions are your compass. They help you know what direction you're turned in so that you know whether you're on the right track or whether you need to tweak something. Okay? It tells you how much force you need to use or if you need to use a light touch. That's what your emotions are doing. So don't run from your emotions. Your emotions can tell you a lot, but you got to take time. You got to get off of can't see morning and can't see night in order to develop your spiritual skills. Do you know that you can sit in meditation and thought for a couple of hours and come up with a concept or an idea, or to just relax yourself enough so that a solution comes in and you can make more money than when you work 12 hours, worrying, stressing, freaking out, calling on the phone, going crazy. I remember when I first started selling real estate, I used to keep the phone like right here and I'd be picking it up. It didn't ring. I'd be checking to see, do it have a dial tone? That's not the way to manifest and have a good relationship with money. Now, let's get into this part right here. Y'all don't have no questions. I'm going to keep going. We started off at the beginning of this webinar talking about ancestral lack and how we want to remove the ancestral lack from us. You hear me from our epigenetics. You keep hearing me talking about can't see morning and can't see night, because that's generally what most of us are stuck on. We run our businesses like that because that is how our ancestors were programmed to work. And that programming is in us. And so what we want to do is remove some of that programming that was embedded into us or coded into us during that kidnapping phase of our life. And we want to access the coding that was there before the kidnapping that connects us to Almighty God, Allah. All right. There's inherited ancestral program. There are genetic sequences that are playing out in the lifestyles that are passed down to us from our parents. This is why the coming of Master Prophet Muhammad and the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan are so critical, because what they teach us is Black people, as Black people, is how to let go of that genetic sequence that was reset when we were kidnapped and brought over here. It ain't about who's talking and who hurt your feelings, and it's about reprogramming. Most of us as descendants of slaves are living in a fear-based reality. We don't have no courage. We're scared, and we don't even know we're scared. We live in a little box, in our little safe space, in our few little people we talk to. We're scared because we don't want to be hurt. We don't want to be whipped. We associate hard work with abundance. And then we can't understand why we see people on their yachts in the middle of the day. I remember I bought a condo in the West Loop many years ago. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm getting up in the morning and working my butt off. Some of these people that live up in here don't get up and go nowhere. I didn't know that some of them were working from home. I didn't know that some of them only work 4 days a week. Some of them didn't work the hours I was working, because I had this mindset that the more I worked, the harder I worked. Not the smarter, but the more and the harder, the faster I was going to get ahead. And I had not yet learned how to take care of myself spiritually. I had not yet learned how to read my central nervous system. This is why most of us are sick. This is why most of us have high blood pressure. This is why most of us are suffering from diabetes. This is why most of our cortisol levels are out of control, because we don't know how to check in with ourselves. We're stressed out to the max. We're so stressed out that our hormones are out of control that we can't even process food properly. We can't even do what is natural for us as human beings. So you wonder why you can't lose the weight? is because you're going from can't see morning to can't see night. You need to stop for a minute. Give your central nervous system a break. Sit outside on the porch. Take your shoes off. Now, I'm not talking to some of y'all who do this all the time, people who just being lazy. I'm talking about those of us working class people who have in our genetic sequences that type of work load, where we associate hard work with abundance. One day I was sitting up and I said, you know what? No matter how many hours I put in on this job, it ain't gonna make me $1 million. So I literally could work around the clock. It ain't gonna make me $1 million. So let me start being creative and think of some other ideas. I started this concept that I call pipelines, where I'm building pipelines. And I'll have like 8, 9, 10 pipelines that I'm building. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Sometimes some are smaller than others. Some may be where this particular pipeline may just be earning me $200 a month. And I say, okay, that's a cell phone bill. But then I may have this big one over here that's, a multi-million-dollar one. Or I may have some in the middle. I may have 2 or 3 smaller ones. And collectively, they bringing in about $5,000 a month. I say, okay, that'll take care of these bills. So I'm always encouraging the pipeline, no matter what it brings in. I'll give you an example. I have been in love with oud oils for years. And so I have been curating these ouds, and I have so many, and I'm trying to put this together. And I met this, there's a word for it when you make oils. But anyway, met this guy from Turkey who does that. He put this unique blend together for me. We went through this prayer process and this vibrational process to put it together. And it went for years where it was a concept and it wasn't making any money. And now when I put those ouds out, it's my #1 seller. I sell out. I can't keep them. And so now I have to invest in a bigger order because it's a pipeline that exploded. And that happens. I can name a lot of different pipelines that I've had, some that have generated money, some things that I do because on a spiritual level, I just got to get out what Allah gives me. I have to get out the downloads because I know it's not for me. And so I do things to respond to the spirit, to Allah. And so I'm going with the flow. That's how you make money. Is you got to figure out how to find the rhythm and find the flow. And it's going to start with, you can't see when you're doing too much and you're in the way, and your genetic sequence or your genetic programming is just trying to keep you safe. Tania said, can you give us a bullet point version of the fundamentals to staying organized while working 8 to 9 different projects? It sounds like it could be overwhelming. Yes. Before I go to this next point, Tania, I can help you with that. I project manage myself. So I have my calendar that I work with. There's planning. So at the beginning of the week, I'm planning out what I have to do for each project in order to move each project forward. And I write that down. I prioritize it. And then I use my calendar to say, okay, at this time, I need to do this for that project. And so I'm scheduling it out so that I'm feeding each project what it needs when it needs it. Okay. So I look at myself as one big project or one big corporation, which is something I started way back in high school. I used to see myself as a corporation, and I would carry a briefcase and all the different things that I was doing, whether it was this class, that test, choir practice, band rehearsal, cheerleading, um, studying for this or that. And I just project manage it and lay it out. How much do I need to study in order to complete this course? Or what do I need to do in order to develop this product? I hope that helps. But you got to just project manage yourself, and then you prioritize things. And it's all about being organized. So you find a way to organize. Back in the day, I used to have a folder for each project that I was working on. So if you ever looked in my briefcase, there might be 10 folders with 10 different colors with lists inside of different things that I would be doing. Now I do it electronically. And so all of those, sometimes I even segregate them by email. So if you know me, I got about 7 different emails. But I'm always segregating and working a calendar so that I know what I'm doing and what I'm working on. And ultimately, Tania, you'll get to the point where your projects all kind of merge together, and you're not so, if you will, like schizophrenic, all over the place. Things will kind of just blend and merge, and it'll become easier as you get more comfortable with who you are. See, part of the problem with staying organized with a lot of different projects is because you think you got to be a different person for each project. I used to be really schizophrenic. There was corporate Wendy and spiritual Wendy and music Wendy and construction Wendy, and there was all these different people. And then finally I had to say, you know what, let me work on being my authentic self. Let me work on being real and being who I am and who I need to be. And then all this other stuff becomes easier. Then it's just an administrative thing. And then eventually, when you get so big, you're going to be able to have a project manager that works on each of the project pipelines that you're working on. Okay. So I hope that helps, Tania. All right. Do you feel guilty about resting? We talked about that. All right. Do you ever give yourself a chance to recover? Are you operating in a frequency of lack? What is a frequency of lack? It means you get up in the morning and you think to yourself, if I don't hustle all day long, I ain't going to be able to eat. If I don't hustle all day long, I'm going to get evicted. If I don't hustle all day long, I'm not going to have any money. Are you focused on lack? Or are you saying, this is what I say, I'm so excited to see how Allah is going to show up and show out today. What pipeline that you've given me am I going to work on? And what am I going to do for each pipeline? See, because I believe every idea is divine. It's a memory. It's something that God has given me. Those desires, things that I think I want, things that I think I say. Sometimes you come up with an idea and it ain't you at all. And you all hear me say this in reference to Sajda House. I thought, ooh, yeah, let's call it Sajda House, because the house is at the beginning, it was too messed up. All these raccoons and stuff in here. We can't put the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's name on it. We're going to call it Sajda House. And my ego made me think, oh, that's my idea. That's a great idea. Right? I asked the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, what do you think, sir? Do you think we can call it Sajda House? What do you think about that? I'm in my ego. He says to me, Sajda is the right name for the house and the right name for you. Ooh, uh-oh. How he gave me a spiritual name I got to live into. I got to become. I got to evolve into. I thought it was an ego thing. It was my idea, my thing. I came up with it, Saj the House. And then I learned that one of the songs that he played for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the dining room of the house was called The Adoration. And Sajda is the adoration. So it wasn't my idea at all. And so what that taught me is how to collapse my ego and dissolve myself. Because if I said, ooh, Allah, if these is all your ideas, you're going to fund them. If these are all your concepts and it ain't my ego, something I came up with, then I know you're going to tell me what to do. You're going to tell me how to move. And so that's how I started praying. That's how I started meditating. What's my next move? What's next? What's next? And don't get me wrong, it's not easy because the ego, the masculine side wants to take over and be like, look, man, let's just get this done. But that's how you go into more of a spiritual place with it. I hope this is helping somebody. Okay. Are you living a performance-based lifestyle? That's big, especially for a lot of us that are in sales. And we've been taught if I don't perform, I don't get paid. And so everything we do is about performance. And so we never even really do a lot of preparation for the performance because we're always performing. But in order to make the performance good, you got to prepare for the performance, right? If you're an actor or a singer, you got to work on your voice. You got to work on your projection. You got to work on your lines. You got to do a bunch of stuff behind the scenes before you give that great performance. But if you live a performance-based life, then you're constantly performing, constantly tap dancing, and you never take a moment to prepare for the great performance. Are you living a performance-based lifestyle? Performing for who? That proverbial boss? Or do you work a job that's making you constantly perform with no preparation? Something else for us to think about. This is all about raising awareness. It's all for us to think about. If I don't perform, people will think I'm lazy. Let me get up. If I don't perform, I'll end up homeless and broke. If I don't perform, I don't deserve success. If I don't perform, I'm in danger. If I don't perform, always performing for massa, performing for master, performing for massa. That's not how God works. That's not how we improve our money psychology. We talked about the balance, masculine, feminine. All right. Now, let's get to this part because I ain't going to keep y'all all night. We're going to be out of here in about 15 minutes. So get your questions going. Thank you all for your questions. I want to do a prayer to disrupt the genetic sequence. I want to remove this poverty-conscious coding from our genetic sequence. How do we do that? It's all right here, y'all. It's all in our brain. And now that you know, now that you've been familiarized with some of these concepts that we've talked about today in this webinar, your subconscious is already going to work. So let's close our eyes for a minute. And this is just, it's a prayer, but it's really more like a prayer to the ancestors. And I want to say it to them like this. Ancestors, we appreciate you. We appreciate everything you've gone through. We appreciate every experience you have, both good and bad. We appreciate you and we honor you. We are not of the world that disrespects our elders. We appreciate the shoulders we stand on. We're grateful for you. We understand that you had to teach us certain behaviors in order to keep us safe. We understand that your prayers are so strong that you probably coded generations in advance to make sure that what happened to you don't happen to us. We understand that you learned to make lemonade out of lemons. We understand that you took the scraps and you made food. You made the best of it. We understand. We understand that you didn't have any money and that you could not see a point in time where we would be able to be millionaires in this world. We understand that. What we ask you to do today is to release that hold on us. Don't try to keep us safe by keeping us away from money and abundance. What we need from you is love. What we need from you is self-esteem, authenticity. What were your prayers? What were your dreams? We know we're the answers to your prayer. We want to walk into what you desired. What did you want? And give us the courage to step up and do it. But don't keep us hostage. And don't keep us in the cage that you had to sleep in. Don't keep us in bondage because you were in bondage. Let us go. Because we now have a God on the scene that gave us the sun, moon, and stars. And we are ready. And so we respectfully release any negative programming. We respectfully release any bad habits. We respectfully release the behaviors that you learned when you were kidnapped by Satan, whether you were bred on breeding plantations, whether you were fighting on a fighting plantation, whatever it was. We know that you were made that way. You are like a woman. You were made that way by a no good man, and we release that today. And so we're going to walk into our destiny. We're going to walk into our power. We're going to walk like we know that God is with us. We're going to reprogram our minds. We're going to let go of this poverty consciousness. We're going to work. We're going to put in the work. This stuff takes work. What we need from our ancestors is love, and what we need from you, Allah, is your continued support and your patience, your grace and your mercy. We know it's going to take work. We know that self-improvement is a lot of work. We're going to start over with these study guides. We're going to dig into how we can be a better person, because as a people, we have not been living right for a long time. We've become predators, and we've taken on the mind of Satan. And we know that if we let him go, that the world is going to open up to us. And so all the little levels of deceptive intelligence that we use that keep us holding on to Satan's world, we ask that you give us the courage to let go. We know we just holding on because we're scared. We're scared of the unknown. We're scared of Allah because we can't see you. Some of us don't believe that we're gods. We ask for your courage. We ask for your enlightenment. We ask for your help. We ask that you allow us to be a little bolder in our prayers. So we're going to stop begging in our prayers. We're going to stop crying and acting like we ain't got nothing in our prayers. And we're going to come to you like the God you told us that we are. And so we're going to ask you the how. How do we move in this direction? How do we solve this problem? Give me a demonstration of your love. Give me a demonstration that you are here. Show me. Let me see you. And I'll tell you one last little thing that I do. I look for Allah in everything. In everything. Tania, you asked a question. What about when you avoid things? I look for Allah in that. Allah, are you telling me this ain't that important, or is it important and I'm avoiding it? It's always Allah in it. Every blade of grass, every rock. I was at the lake today walking, and I was looking at the rocks and how they were formed, and I was saying, look at Allah. Because it's all an extension of the mind of God. And so when we begin to nurse from the mind of God instead of nursing from the mind of Satan. See, we go to Satan because we have belief issues. Let me know if y'all got any questions. That's all I got for you. That's all I got. Let me know what you thought, what you're thinking, any questions, any comments. I know y'all, everybody's in there, got their thinking cap on. The chat is quiet, everything. If you don't have any questions, then I'm going to get ready to close us out. And I want to remind you, next week, we're going to be talking about credit literacy. I got a special guest for you, a credit expert who's going to talk to us about credit. We're going to demystify credit. We're going to take some of the myths out of it. We're going to keep mining this mind of ours and get Satan up out of our mind. See, Satan get up in there and get us all scared. Everything is big. Everything becomes a god besides Allah. We're going to work on that thing. And so we're going to talk about credit next week. And then the following week, we're going to have a talk on financial literacy. And then we're going to come back and talk about mental strategies. Okay. Tania said, this has been a blessing. I'm glad, sis. All praises due to Allah. I see Aletha with the heart. Sister Victoria 2X said, amen. Sandra D said, Ameen. The prayer was everything. Thank you. All praises due to Allah. Sister Dawn, hey sis, says, yes, thank you. This has been a blessing. Praise be to Allah. All right. Anybody want to do a one-on-one session with me? You just have to go to book.SajdaWendyMuhammad.com. Just go to book.SajdaWendyMuhammad.com. If you buy one session, I'll give you a follow-up session for free, and we can zone in on your specific issues. And I'll help walk you through. I love solving problems. I will help walk you through how we can get you to the next level, whether it's in your business, it's in your life, whatever it is. Because my goal is to get you to what happens is that oftentimes we don't have help. We don't have nobody helping us get to that next level. We flailing around out here on our own. And I want to be that help for you. Listen, I'm praying blessings and abundance over each and every one of you. I'm praying that each and every person here today gets access to a blessing that they didn't see coming. Some blessing, something that you need, whether it's regarding your health, whether it's regarding your relationship, your job, your business, your car. It could be anything. I pray Almighty God, Allah, blesses you in a way that you never, ever saw coming. I pray that you are successful beyond your wildest dreams. I pray that you need a team to manage the blessings that are coming your way. I pray that you have so much flowing towards you and in your way that you call me and scramble and say, hey, I need help. I need people, because I'm so blessed. All right, family. So if you enjoyed anything tonight, you want to make a donation, you can always Cash App, Sajda Enterprises. You can give to the Elijah Muhammad House. We got some things coming up. We got the waltz coming up. But in the meanwhile, I will see you all next week on the webinar. We'll be here, inshallah, next week, Sunday, 7 p.m. Central Time. And then we'll also be, which is no charge, the Friday and Saturday coffee talks. And if you think of questions, you can always bring them next week. What I'll do next week is open up for Q&A, because now that we've maybe unlocked some codes, you may have some things that you're thinking about through the week. But listen to me, y'all. I want you walking like you know that God is on your side. I want you talking like you're supposed to be in the room. I want you talking like you know that God is talking through you, and ask him to use you. Ask him to be your conduit. All right, family. Love you all very much. Thank you. And thank you. Be a friend. Tell a friend. Tell people about this. Let them know. If you enjoyed it, let them know that they definitely got to sign up. Because let me tell you something. I got a surprise for y'all on this credit literacy. This credit literacy going to be off the chain. It is not going to disappoint. Trust me, it ain't. All right, family. I will talk to you soon. And may Allah bless you. Talk to you soon, inshallah. May Allah bless you. Like I said, prepare for those blessings that you never even saw coming. Just know that Allah will never forsake you. No matter how big your problem is. Let me say this to you before we go. The value that you add to the world is greater than what you need and what you're asking Allah for. What you're asking Allah for is nothing to him. Nothing. So don't ever think it's so big that it can't be granted and that it can't be solved. Sister Victoria 2X said, thank you, beloved. Enjoyed this immensely. May Allah bless you. Thank you, and thank you. All right, brothers and sisters, I will see you all, inshallah, next week. Okay, I'm going to go for real this time. Peace and blessings.
The Elijah Muhammad House presents Black Waltz in White, an electrifying and elegant movement introduced to the Nation of Islam in the 1930s by Master W. Fard Muhammad. Join us for the second event in our Arts, Culture, and Civilization series. Learn more about the level of culture and refinement taught and demonstrated by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We'll be there Thursday, June 26th at 6 p.m. in Elijah's Garden of Peace at 4847 South Woodlawn Avenue. All ages are welcome to attend this special event of dance, education, in our sacred space. Visit ElijahMuhammadHouse.com to secure your seat.